Let's jump right into this explainer, where we are completely shattering the myth that raw muscle dictates a fight. We're going to break down the exact science of how an underdog can actually secure a knockout. Picture the classic David and Goliath scenario, right? On one side, you've got this skinny fighter, someone with incredible endurance but limited raw concussive power. And standing across from him is this massively muscular opponent who looks like he could literally punch through a brick wall. On paper, it looks totally unfair. But combat is a game of physics, biology, and strategy, not just bodybuilding. The dynamic of this matchup becomes obvious pretty quickly. Right out of the gate, that muscular fighter is terrifyingly dangerous. But all that massive muscle, it comes with a severe tax. It demands a ton of oxygen. So the longer the fight goes, the faster he's going to gas out. Now, our skinny fighter has a huge cardio advantage, meaning time is on his side. He could just wait for the giant to get tired. But what if he doesn't want to wait? What if he wants a knockout right now? To pull that off, he needs a completely different strategy. He has to trade raw power for absolute surgical precision.
Section 1. Anatomy of a knockout. Creating the impact.
To get that early finish without relying on heavy hands, our underdog has to understand exactly what causes a knockout. And here's the secret. A knockout isn't actually about how hard you hit someone. It's not about the sheer force of muscle behind the punch. It's all about generating what's called a brain shake. A knockout is really a neurological event. It happens when the brain violently shakes inside the skull and literally slams against the inside bone walls. When that collision happens, the body's systems basically reboot, lights out. Once you realize this, you know you don't need a sledgehammer to turn off the lights. You just need to know exactly how to flip the switch.
To get that brain shake without massive power, the fighter has to rely completely on accuracy. Let's break this down. First up, the target. He aims for the jaw. A strike here acts like a lever, causing the head to rotate violently, which is the absolute best way to trigger that internal brain slam. Second, the tool. When he throws a punch, he isn't just wildly swinging. He makes sure the impact lands strictly on the two largest knuckles. Why? Because that concentrates all the force into the smallest possible surface area. And third, the drill. You have to build this kind of precision. Imagine our fighter between rounds, flashing back to training at home, putting tiny target points on his heavy bag to perfect that exact knuckle placement over and over again.
Section 2. The invisible strike, the science of timing.
Because accuracy alone just isn't enough if your opponent is ready for it. And this brings us to one of the wildest mysteries in combat sports. Why do we sometimes see these barely there, incredibly light punches result in an instant knockout, while massive swinging haymakers sometimes don't even faze a guy? The answer is all about timing.
It comes down to human biology. You see, when an opponent physically sees a punch coming, their central nervous system goes into overdrive. Their brain automatically fires off lightning-fast signals to contract the muscles all around the neck and the jaw. This instinctual defense mechanism completely stabilizes the head, bracing it to absorb the impact safely. It drastically limits that violent rotation, totally preventing the brain shake.
But if our skinny fighter is patient and waits for the exact moment his opponent is distracted, he can land an invisible shot. If the opponent literally doesn't see the strike coming, that automatic muscle protection never triggers. The neck stays totally relaxed. Even a super light, accurate strike to the jaw in that split second will cause the head to whip around freely, giving you a clean knockout with very minimal force. It's not the heavy punch that knocks you out, it's the one you don't see.
Section 3. Setting the trap. Elevating your fight IQ. So, how do you actually land that invisible strike on a giant? This is where physical mechanics meet fight IQ. Our skinny fighter sets a trap, using a pattern-breaking strategy. Phase 1, he starts throwing a relentless series of body shots, specifically targeting the liver, knowing that's a major weak point. Phase 2, he repeats this until the giant forms a subconscious habit. The giant naturally starts dropping his guard to protect his ribs. Phase 3, the pattern breaks. The skinny fighter starts the exact same movement, but instead of the expected body shot, he launches a sudden, lightning-fast high kick straight to the unprotected head. But let's pause and think about the physical reality of doing this. To throw that high kick fast enough to actually be invisible, you need incredible functional flexibility. So, how exactly does a fighter physically prepare their body to snap a kick all the way up to a giant's head without losing their speed or power? To figure that out, we have to debunk a massive myth right now. Most people think flexibility is just about physically lengthening short muscle fibers by stretching, but that's just not true. Your body isn't tight because your muscles are physically too short. Your body is tight because your nervous system is limiting your range of motion. It senses weakness when your muscles are in stretched, vulnerable positions, so it hits the brakes to protect you from tearing anything. It's basically a software limitation, not a hardware one.
And that perfectly leads us to the solution, the PNF method. Here's exactly how it works. Step 1. Instead of just passively holding a stretch, you move into a moderate stretch, like a frog split. Step 2. You actively contract those stretched muscles super hard against resistance for exactly 5 seconds. You're building physical strength right there in that extreme range of motion. Step 3. Relax and repeat. When the muscle gets strong there, your nervous system finally says, okay, this position is safe, and permanently unlocks that new, functional range of motion. Because he used PNF training, our Skinny Fighter's high kick isn't just flexible, it is functionally strong, insanely fast, and totally unexpected.
Section 4. Outsmarting the autopilot. The final blow.
With the physical trap set and that functional flexibility ready to go, we reach the climax of the fight. Aside from breaking patterns, amazing fight IQ also means exploiting anticipated reactions. Let's say our skinny tactician fakes a cross-punch and notices the giant always predictably slips his head to one specific side. Well, he now owns that reaction. The giant is fighting on autopilot and literally moves his own unprotected jaw perfectly into the empty space, right into the path of the incoming invisible high kick.
And boom, there it is, the trap springs. Caught completely off guard by the pattern break, the giant's hands are down. His neck muscles are perfectly relaxed. The invisible high kick lands flush on the jaw with perfect accuracy. The head violently rotates, the brain shake happens, and the muscular Goliath crumbles to the mat. The Skinny Fighter absolutely dismantles him, using physics and psychology instead of pure brawn.
So what should you take away from this explainer? It's really simple. You absolutely do not need to be the biggest or the strongest person in the room to be the most dangerous. Raw power has limits, and it always comes with an endurance tax. But precision, timing, and strategy, those are limitless. So stop sparring on autopilot. Stop training just your muscles, and start training your fight IQ. I'll leave you with this question. Looking at your own goals, where are you relying on brute force when you should really be setting a trap?